The amount of people asking for this song might eclipse very well every single fan base I have ever touched at any song that's ever been requested on this channel. There was a point where somebody spammed so hard that I had to actually block them from the channel because it was everything, and that is only continued for the past 2 weeks. I've got a schedule, guys. I know when there's new songs out, a few comments is all it takes. Please don't spam me. I see everything. I read all of the comments. Hundreds of them is not going to make me get to it faster, nor is it going to make me feel more up to it. That said, it's not like I'm actually mad. It's just more of Jesus, chill, you know? Chill. We're here now. We're good. And without further ado, let's go. This better be good. This better be super good for how much people have been asking. Okay, not a bad start. Okay, got a catchy little repeating melody. There's something a little bit goofy about it. Clearly it's not supposed to be. But it just kind of felt a little bit whimsical. I like this breakbeat kind of thing going on too. It's a good sample. Keeping up the syncopation in here as well. It's good keeping the song moving through different feels of all the instruments. Ooh, a little bit of a break here too. See, we added some tension, kind of a more, romantic tension. Oh, that's why. Now it makes sense. I didn't think I was gonna end up liking the vocals being this tucked back in, but the subtlety is actually kind of neat. Okay, a complete change up of the feel here. Fun little bass line there, a little boop, 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 boop. Okay. I'm starting to come around to it. I was skeptical. And I started to come around right at the end. That took a little bit for me to really turn around and get into it, but they got me by the end. Not too shabby. You know, I knew what this game was roughly about from the other songs I've covered of Grace, not many of them, but enough to at least get the gist from the community as I do so. I did not expect, honestly, to see something about suicidal ideation. That is pretty profound, and I think that the song did a really good job at hiding a lot of its intent in the sound. Like, obviously, the song is supposed to represent what's being talked about. However, the way that this was done was messy. And that's not a bad thing in this case. A lot of the time when I say something's messy and there's like lacking direction, I would be like, ew, gross, get it out of my face. I don't really care for that for this song and this subject matter. But I think it does make a lot more sense for people who might understand the mental space that this character is in, because yeah, you kind of get it, you know, like if anyone's ever been through this, you kind of understand where the character's coming from and why it sounds like that, because that's what the inner thoughts kind of sound like, and that's really cool. The song itself is kind of a mess as well, but again, there's a point for that. So music theory wise, there's plenty to talk about, but I'm going to focus on a few things. The first thing is the relationship between like the first chunk of the song and what chords they're using for this. So this is interesting because they're using a key that has enharmonic equivalence. So when I say, for example, this is C flat, that's also B natural. If you're just like reading it straight on, you know, the keyboard, that's how that would be played. It's just how these things work. Enharmonic equivalents are literally the same exact voicing for a note, just named differently due to the layout of the key and what notes are available. It's very strange and gets way too into the whole technicalities of music theory, but just so you're aware, that's a thing. But what I like about this and how it plays into it is, like, for example, that exact one has this relationship with the B flat minor. And it's like, you just kind of bounce between those two. And that's kind of the first chunk of the song, is like all that. And that happens again later, except we take the same principle of those two kind of fighting against each other, and then we just move it up, and now we get to an E flat minor and an F flat, which is another enharmonic equivalent to E natural. So then we end up getting this relationship of, which sounds immediately more tense than this one, even though they're both similar in their relationship between the two chords. This one is just, it's like it's pulling a little bit more tension out of those chords in the relationship. And I think purely the reason that is because of that shift. Moving from those lower notes to the higher notes kind of brings your energy with it. And now you have this similar relationship going on here, where we have that whole thing happening, except now that it's up higher on the keyboard, it's just naturally making you feel a little bit more on edge because something has moved. The concept is still the same, but it's more intense now because everything shifted up with it. So that makes sense with the song getting more and more into it. As we evolve the track, things need to become an evolution of themselves. You need to move the song in the same direction in order for the listener to start feeling that tension added further and further. And then there's quite a few other chords being put in here. There's like an A in here, there's like a D in here. They do move around quite a bit and have a little bit going on. I mean, the movement of this song, if you couldn't tell, is very frantic. They're constantly sliding through different things, and it is hard to pinpoint what some of the chords are. But for that last section where everything kind of comes to an emotional head, the part that I really liked and it started to make me understand more of what was going on in the song, I like that because it goes from some general chords, some very basic ones compared to what we just dealt with, and it just sticks to a simple progression. So that final part is kind of G, A, I think it's C flat minor, which would be a B minor equivalent, and then D, which is kind of what it ends on. That doesn't really show up until the very last chord. We end on that, and that's just this like up note that we end on, this like really upbeat feeling. Very interesting choice to end the whole song on this like lift here, but again, that kind of makes sense for the story of how things are adding tension. There's this emotional release, this catharsis, if you will. I hate it when I have to say that, but it's there, and that's kind of where the song ends. It brings you to this final note, it closes the book, and it just feels very satisfying to resolve on that. So this relationship of D to the A to the B minor, C flat minor, and then of course ending on the D. It just feels great. The progression here is super popular. It's very popular in pop, for example, pop music. But I really like this little B minor in here too, because that leaves the energy kind of up and unfinished. Like, there's still questions to be answered, and this doesn't really let you resolve, much like that D does at the very end. So this being here means it's kind of forcing you to go somewhere else, and where better to get more answers than back to the beginning. And then you just get that again, build. And it just kind of keeps that up for a few measures before the song finally resolves with that D. These are the emotional things I like with music, and why that ending part was doing so much for me, because prior to that, it was just kind of messy. And I was wondering if there was really a direction that they were going, aside from just sounding panicked for the sake of sounding panicked. Some composers do end up falling down this rabbit hole of just how much can I fit without having an actual direction or an idea, and that does, you know, eventually hurt the song. If it doesn't go anywhere, why am I listening to it? If there's no actual point to the chaos going on in here, if there's no resolution to that question, then you made chaos with no direction, and it just doesn't sound as good. But this song, wrapping it up in the way that it did at the very end, made it all make sense. And that is the best thing you can do when trying to tell a story through music. Make it make sense, even if you're using chaos in the start in order to really set the tone of where the confusion is and how you're supposed to handle that. Can you handle that? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself while listening. And then by the time you're done, if you don't feel satisfied by the answers, then fuck you. You know, it doesn't feel as good. So this song did everything pretty correct. It's just a matter of it started so chaotic and everything was moving around so much. Aside from those like chord relationships I mentioned, I wasn't really picking up much of anything that felt good. And then there's also the vocals too. Like I mentioned in the reaction, the vocals are okay. I am a little bit more biased towards being able to hear the lyrics instead of just basically not hearing anything and having to read them off screen. I could tell that they were there, but I mean barely. But again, this kind of matters. This fits with the theme and everything, and just having everything drowning out those thoughts. And can there be a clarity to this? And things did get a little bit more clear by the end when we had the lyrics happening there. So again, this all does track with the emotional pressure of the song. You start chaotic, you have things drowned out by it, there's a lot going on, there's plenty of instruments, a little bit too much in some ways, but again, this all fits the mood. And then by the end, things start to clear up, you start to understand more, the answers are coming in, and by the time we get that full resolution on the D there, it feels so great. So I do understand why people wanted me to get to this song. I don't know if I would call it the fucking holy grail that people kept throwing at me. They were like, you gotta do this. But at the same time, I do understand, especially if you've experienced the story of this game, why this moment probably meant so much. I don't have that context, so I don't know really what's going on there. All I see is, again, the suicidal ideation moments, that reality of there not being somebody there makes things start to make sense by the end. So visually, that helps me. If that wasn't there and I just had the lyrics, I don't know if I would have really understood fully what the pressure of this song had. But again, if you're a player of the game, which obviously most of the people listening are going to be, it makes a lot of sense, and it would totally fit and feel fantastic. It would be this gigantic emotional bookend to this story that they've dealt with for who knows how long. I don't know how the updates in these games work, like if they're like kind of live service style where every couple of months somebody puts out an update, or if it's just a really long story and just it took that long for the community to get there. I'm leaning towards the first one, like multiple updates to the story, a couple of chapters at a time, that sort of process. That feels the most correct to me. But either way, again, it matters when you're listening to these songs. Having the context of the story does matter a lot, and if I didn't have that visual, I don't know if I would have picked up on it as well. But I do like what they did with it, and now that I was clued in at least a little bit to the story thanks to those visuals, I'm able to respect it on a deeper level than I would have been able to otherwise. So I think they did a fantastic job. Great job, Phill C. Giving you claps. You can't see them, but I'm clapping, and it's just a great song, and I think you did a very good job. It's just also the reality that I didn't have anything going into it, and this could have turned out very poorly if there wasn't an actual goal to hit. And I'm glad there fucking was, because it it needed it, and I'm glad it got it because that made the whole project that much better. But I think I'm done yapping about this one now, so thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want me to get to something else, by all means, drop in the comments below, but don't spam me, I will find you. But if you don't want to do any of that and you just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!